You type out your review, hit send, and expect it to vanish into the void of the internet. But then, something unexpected happens. The CEO of the company, the very person whose product you criticized, responds personally. Not with a generic apology, but with a thoughtful, human reply that acknowledges your concerns and offers a solution. This isn't a scripted PR move, it's a genuine conversation. Now, you're left wondering, how often does this happen? What does it mean for the company, the CEO, and most importantly, you as a consumer? In today's world, where online reviews can make or break a brand, the power of a single voice has never been more significant. Your opinion matters, and companies are starting to realize that. But what does it take for your review to stand out? Is it the way you express your dissatisfaction, the platform you choose, or perhaps the timing of your feedback? And when a CEO takes the time to respond, what does that say about the company's values and commitment to its customers? This story isn't just about a bad review and a CEO's response. It's about the evolving relationship between consumers and brands in the digital age. It's about transparency, accountability, and the human element behind corporate decisions. It's about understanding that behind every product, there's a team of people striving to meet your needs, and sometimes, they fall short. But when they acknowledge it and work to make it right, it can transform a negative experience into a testament to their dedication. As we delve deeper into this narrative, we'll explore the dynamics of online reviews, the impact of direct communication from top executives, and the broader implications for customer relations. We'll hear from industry experts, delve into case studies, and examine how this trend is reshaping the way businesses interact with their audiences. So, stay tuned as we uncover the layers of this intriguing story and what it means for the future of consumer brand interactions. But here's the twist: not all responses are created equal. Some CEOs might offer a quick apology, while others take the time to engage in a meaningful dialogue. The difference lies in the approach, the intent, and the follow-through. And as we continue, we'll reveal how one company's response not only salvaged a customer's trust but also set a new standard for customer engagement in the industry. As the days passed since her review, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The CEO's response, though polite, had left her with more questions than answers. Why had he taken the time to address her concerns personally? Was it genuine customer service, or was there something more beneath the surface? Her curiosity gnawed at her, compelling her to dig deeper into the company's history and the CEO's background. What she uncovered only added to the mystery. The company's rapid rise to success was accompanied by rumors of aggressive business tactics and questionable ethics. Employees spoke of a high-pressure environment, where dissent was not tolerated, and whistleblowers mysteriously disappeared. The CEO, once hailed as a visionary, had a reputation for being reclusive and enigmatic, rarely seen in public and even more rarely speaking to the media. Yet, here he was, responding to a single customer's complaint. Emma couldn't help but wonder if her review had touched a nerve, or if she had unwittingly become a pawn in a much larger game. Determined to uncover the truth, Emma reached out to former employees and industry insiders, piecing together a picture of a company that was not as it seemed. She learned of a rival firm that had mysteriously gone bankrupt shortly after launching a similar product, and of a whistleblower who had been silenced after exposing unethical practices. Each new revelation brought her closer to a chilling conclusion: the company's success might not be as legitimate as it appeared. But why had the CEO chosen to engage with her? Was it a calculated move to quell dissent, or was there something more personal at play? The answers seemed just out of reach, like pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. As Emma delved deeper, she began to notice subtle signs that she was being watched. Strange emails appeared in her inbox, some with cryptic messages, others with attachments she hadn't opened. Her social media accounts were flooded with friend requests from unfamiliar profiles. Even her phone received calls from unlisted numbers, always hanging up before she could answer. The sense of being under surveillance was palpable, and it was clear that someone was aware of her investigation. But who? The company? The CEO? Or was there a third party involved, manipulating events from the shadows? The deeper Emma dug, the more entangled she became in a web of deceit and intrigue. Each new piece of information led to more questions, and the line between friend and foe blurred. She couldn't trust anyone, not her colleagues, not her sources, and certainly not the company that had once seemed so transparent. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined, and the truth, if it existed, was more elusive than ever. And then, just when she thought she was getting closer to the heart of the mystery, a new development threw everything into chaos. A video surfaced online, showing the CEO in a compromising situation, one that contradicted everything he had publicly stated. The video was brief, but its implications were profound. Was it a fabrication? A smear campaign? Or was it the key to unraveling the entire conspiracy? Emma knew she had to act fast. But with her every move being watched, and the walls closing in, she had to decide, expose the truth and risk everything, or walk away and let the mystery remain unsolved. As the tension reached its peak, Emma found herself at a crossroads. The answers she sought were within her grasp, but so were the dangers. In the world of corporate espionage and hidden agendas, trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. The final pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but with each revelation came a new threat. Who could she trust? Who was pulling the strings behind the scenes? And most importantly, what was the CEO's true role in this intricate game? The clock was ticking, and Emma had to make a choice. But as she prepared to take the next step, a chilling message arrived, one that would change everything. It was from an anonymous source, someone claiming to know the truth about the CEO's past and the company's rise to power. The message contained a single line: "The answer lies within the review." Emma stared at the screen, her heart racing. The review. The seemingly insignificant feedback she had written weeks ago. Had it been more than just a complaint? Had she unwittingly uncovered a clue that could unravel the entire conspiracy? Reporterist. +1. NewYorker.com. +1. With no time to waste, Emma revisited her original review, scrutinizing every word, every sentence, searching for hidden meanings or overlooked details. And then, she found it, a subtle reference to a product feature that had been discontinued shortly after the company's launch. His background in cybersecurity gave him a unique edge, and he used it to trace the metadata from the photo he received. What he discovered made his stomach drop. The image had been uploaded to a private server registered under a shell company, a name Emma had come across weeks ago in an obscure footnote tied to one of the CEO's earliest business ventures. But when Noah dug deeper, he found that the server was also being accessed by someone inside a major news outlet, an investigative journalist who, oddly enough, had just published a puff piece about the CEO's philanthropy initiatives. It didn't make sense. Why would a journalist with access to this kind of sensitive information be publishing PR fluff? Unless, of course, they weren't just a journalist. Maybe they were on the payroll. Or maybe they had their own secrets to protect. Emma and Noah, now both entrenched in a maze of lies, tried to piece together the shifting puzzle, but every step forward seemed to uncover two more questions. Had the original review Emma posted triggered a dormant operation meant to redirect or suppress dissent? Was the CEO simply trying to preserve his image, or was there something far more dangerous hidden in the company's history? And what about Alex? His strange behavior, his vague warnings, the way he suddenly stopped offering help, it all felt off. Could he have been the one feeding Emma doctored files? Was he working with the people she was trying to expose? With every connection tangled, every ally suspect, and every clue now a potential trap, the stakes had never been higher. Emma knew she couldn't trust what she saw, what she heard, or even what she remembered. The line between fact and manipulation had blurred beyond recognition. And just when she thought the conspiracy couldn't twist any tighter, her email pinged again. This time, it was a video. Not from Sarah. Not from an anonymous source. It was from her. Emma. But she had never recorded it. The video showed her, sitting in her own living room, speaking directly into the camera. She looked tired, on edge, her voice strained. "If you're seeing this," the video version of herself said, "then I was right. They were inside everything. Don't trust the review. It's not what it looks like." And then, static. Emma stared at the screen, numb. The file wasn't dated. It had no metadata. It had come from a location just blocks from her apartment. She didn't remember recording it, but it was clearly her. And the words she spoke didn't just contradict what she believed, they suggested everything she thought was real had been orchestrated from the start. Was it a deepfake? A threat? A warning from a version of herself she hadn't yet become? Whatever it was, one thing was certain: Emma wasn't chasing the truth anymore. The truth was chasing her that night. As a storm crawled across the city skyline, Emma sat paralyzed at her desk, the glow of the cryptic video still reflected in her eyes. The sound of thunder outside was barely audible over the noise building inside her mind: questions, doubts, fragments of conversations she thought she understood but now realized might have been manipulated all along. She replayed the footage over and over, searching for any flaw, any visual glitch that could prove it wasn't real. But the lighting, the expressions, the cadence of her voice, every detail matched perfectly, right down to the tiny scar on her chin she usually covered with concealer. If this was fake, it was masterfully done. And if it wasn't, she didn't even want to consider what that meant. Still, there was something wrong, something she couldn't name but felt deep in her bones. It was the eerie sense that someone had been inside her world without her even knowing. Not just watching, but interacting, guiding. Around midnight, as the rain battered her windows, she received a text message from Noah. "Can you talk?" She called immediately, but the phone rang out, no answer. She texted back, tried again, then again, her anxiety mounting with each attempt. Noah had never ignored her calls. A sinking feeling pressed down on her chest as she threw on a hoodie and grabbed her keys. His apartment wasn't far. The streets were slick and reflective, the storm turning everything into a blurred mosaic of light and shadow. When she reached his building, something felt off. The door to the stairwell was propped open, a strange detail in a place where tenants were normally meticulous about security. She took the steps two at a time, heart pounding louder with each floor she climbed. Noah's apartment door was ajar. She hesitated, her hand trembling as she pushed it open slowly. "Noah," she called out, her voice weak and shaky. Inside, everything looked almost normal. His laptop was still open on the table, a mug half full of coffee sat beside it. But the air felt heavy, charged. She stepped in cautiously, her eyes scanning every corner. Then she saw it, the photo. The same one he had received earlier, printed again and placed neatly on the keyboard. But this time, it wasn't just her in the frame. She was standing with Noah outside a coffee shop, laughing. The timestamp read just 4 hours ago. The implication was sickening. Someone had been following them that day, close enough to get that shot, close enough to touch them. And now Noah was gone. Panic gave way to something darker, a primal kind of fear Emma had never felt before. This wasn't just surveillance anymore. It was a warning. A message. She didn't know where her brother was, but she knew without a doubt that he hadn't left voluntarily. Something had happened, and it was her fault. She had dragged him into this. As she sat frozen in his empty living room, the weight of that realization broke something in her. For the first time, the story didn't feel like a mystery to be solved, it felt like a trap, one that had been laid out far in advance, each breadcrumb carefully placed to lure her deeper. The review, the CEO's reply, the missing whistleblower, the doctored video, all of it might have been orchestrated. And if that was true, the real question wasn't what she was uncovering. It was who wanted her to uncover it. The storm outside had quieted, but inside her, the fear was only growing louder. She returned home in the early hours of the morning, soaked and shaking, and started checking every inch of her apartment, under tables, behind curtains, even inside vents. Rationally, she knew how paranoid it looked. But she also knew she wasn't wrong. Someone was always one step ahead. She powered on her laptop and found a new file had appeared on her desktop, though she hadn't downloaded anything. It was a screenshot of her FaceTime call log, showing a missed call that she didn't recognize from a number with an international prefix. Underneath was a short sentence in red text: "You weren't supposed to find the review." Emma stared at the message, her breath shallow. That review, the very first domino, was no longer what it had seemed. She had assumed it was an honest mistake on the company's end, a faulty product and a CEO trying to save face. But what if it wasn't? What if the review itself had been bait, planted or manipulated to test her, to see how far she'd go? What if everything that followed had been engineered not in reaction to her review, but because of it? The terrifying possibility started to consume her, that she hadn't stumbled into a mystery, she had been chosen for it. The clock on her screen blinked 3:33 a.m. She hadn't noticed the time passing. Her mouth was dry, her eyes aching, and a migraine bloomed behind her forehead. She leaned back, unable to think clearly anymore, and stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above her. It was too quiet now. Her own thoughts were louder than the storm had ever been. She didn't know who to call, who to trust. Not Alex, not the journalist, not even the police, not after what happened to Sarah, and now Noah. All she had left were questions, fear, and a gnawing sense that the real game hadn't even started yet. And then, her phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number lit up the screen. No words. Just an image. It was her, asleep in bed, taken from just inches away. The timestamp read last night. Emma dropped the phone as her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't been alone. They were closer than she thought. Maybe they'd always been. Emma didn't sleep that night. How could she? The photo on her phone, the one of her sleeping, had shattered the last illusion of safety she had clung to. Someone had been in her apartment, close enough to watch her breathe, close enough to end it all if they wanted. But they hadn't. Instead, they left her that message, that image, a calculated psychological blow. It wasn't just a threat. It was control. It was proof they were always one step ahead. She sat motionless, staring at the dark window, her reflection barely visible in the glass, trying to make sense of how it had come to this. All she had done was write a review that now seemed to carry more weight than she could have imagined. It wasn't about customer service anymore. It wasn't about a broken product or a PR stunt. That review had been the match, but the fire had been ready long before she ever lit it. By morning, Emma's world was unrecognizable, and yet the city outside kept moving as if nothing had changed. Her phone vibrated again, this time with a message from Alex, the same friend who had helped her in the early days, the one who had suddenly gone quiet when things turned dangerous. "We need to talk. I'm done hiding." The message felt strange, a complete reversal from his previous avoidance. Still, Emma had no choice but to follow the thread. They met at a quiet park on the edge of the city, far from security cameras, far from ears. Alex looked different, tired, shaken, but something else too, something haunted. He didn't wait for pleasantries. "I should have told you everything from the beginning," he said, his voice lower than usual. "But I thought if I kept my head down, they'd leave me alone. I was wrong. They never stop watching." Emma demanded answers, the tension between them taut with everything unsaid. Alex finally exhaled, then pulled out an old hard drive from his backpack, wrapped tightly in layers of black tape. This was from a whistleblower at the company. Not Sarah. Someone else. Someone higher. "It proves the review you wrote wasn't just a complaint, they were testing something. A digital feedback manipulation program. They called it Sentinel. Your review wasn't the first, Emma. But it was the one that triggered the response protocol. They weren't replying to you. They were activating a system." Emma's heart sank. Sentinel. The name echoed ominously in her head. Alex continued, explaining that the company had been using AI-driven behavioral tracking systems to monitor consumer sentiment in real time. Certain keywords, phrasing patterns, and emotional cues triggered different responses, from automated apologies to direct intervention by real people. But that was just the surface. The deeper level was far more sinister. When users like Emma pushed too hard, when their influence extended beyond a threshold of engagement, likes, shares, video reactions, the system flagged them for what they called containment measures. It was no longer about customer satisfaction. It was about control, shaping the digital narrative, bending perception, and in extreme cases, erasing opposition. As Alex spoke, Emma's hands went cold. She remembered how fast her review had gotten traction. How many people had shared it. How quickly the CEO had responded. She had thought she was being listened to, but in truth, she had been selected. The CEO's response wasn't compassion. It was surveillance. It was step one in a containment script designed to diffuse and distract, to keep her from looking deeper. But she had. And that's when everything had changed. Alex hesitated before sharing the final blow. Emma, I found your name on the Sentinel beta logs. But there's more. Your brother's name is there too. Not just recently. From over a year ago. He was flagged before you even wrote the review. Everything collapsed inward at once. Emma couldn't breathe. If Noah had been on that list all along, what did that mean? Had he known? Had he kept it from her? Or worse, had he been part of it? The questions flooded her mind, each more damning than the last. She thought about the photo he received, the way he seemed to get involved only after she dragged him into the chaos. But what if she hadn't? What if he had been monitoring her all along, assigned to steer her away from certain paths, to keep her just close enough to the truth to feel empowered, but never close enough to uncover the full picture? Alex placed a hand on her shoulder, but his eyes were distant. You were never supposed to see the video, he said. It was a controlled illusion. A dead end. But someone leaked it anyway. Someone inside. They wanted you to keep going. And now we don't know who to trust. Emma stepped back, the weight of it all collapsing on her like concrete. Nothing made sense, and yet suddenly everything did. The strange inconsistencies, the dead ends, the manipulated files, even her own memories, all of it could be the result of a larger, coordinated program. And if that was true, then nothing she had experienced could be taken at face value. The people she thought were allies might have been handlers. The threats, maybe not threats at all, but manufactured pressure to guide her actions. And if someone from inside had leaked the real information to her, that meant there was a fracture in the system. Someone wanted the truth out. But before she could ask Alex who that someone might be, his phone buzzed. He checked the screen, then froze. Emma leaned over, and for a brief second, saw a name flash across the display. It wasn't just anyone. It was Noah. And the message was just one line: don't trust her. Emma stumbled backward, heart racing, every instinct screaming that she was no longer at the edge of the mystery, she was deep inside it. And worse, she might have been walking in exactly the direction someone wanted her to go all along. Emma stood frozen in the park, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows that somehow made the open space feel more like a trap. Alex's phone screen still glowed with that message, Noah's name, Noah's words, and not just any words but a warning: don't trust her. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't vague. It was direct and damning. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The silence between them grew thick with suspicion and fear. Emma's chest tightened, and not just from panic. This was betrayal laced with heartbreak, confusion tangled with dread. She had risked everything to protect Noah, believing he'd been targeted because of her. But what if he had been a part of this long before she ever knew it existed? What if everything he'd done, every concerned phone call, every late-night visit, every moment of support, had been part of something larger, something designed to keep her from uncovering the full extent of what she was caught in? Alex stepped away, mumbling that they needed to move somewhere safer, but Emma wasn't ready to move, wasn't ready to think beyond the weight of that message. She stared at the screen until it went dark, replaying every interaction with Noah in her head, searching for signs she might have missed. Had he always known about Sentinel? Had he let her stumble deeper into this system just to see how far she'd go? Or was it possible someone else was using his name to manipulate her trust and push her toward isolation? Later that night, alone in her apartment, Emma's world started folding in on itself. Her phone vibrated again, and for the first time in days, it was an actual call. From Noah. She answered with trembling fingers, unsure what she'd hear, but it was his voice, steady, calm, terrifying in its composure. Emma, you need to stop looking. Right now. They're going to offer you a deal. Take it. Walk away. Forget all of this. His words landed like a punch, and for a second she couldn't even respond. Noah, where have you been? She finally managed, but he ignored the question. You don't understand what's at stake. You think this is about you, or about the company, but it's bigger. You dig any deeper, you won't just put yourself in danger. You'll take others down with you. People you don't even know are involved. People who can't afford to be exposed. Don't be a martyr. Just walk away. Emma's voice cracked. Are you saying you're part of this? That you've been lying to me? There was silence on the other end, so much silence that she thought the line had gone dead. And then, in a whisper, he answered, "It's not about lying. It's about survival." The line cut. That was the moment she knew she was alone, truly alone. Not just without help, but without anyone she could fully believe in. She had no idea where Alex really stood, no idea what Noah had done or was being forced to do. The thought that they might both be compromised left her spiraling. And just when she thought she couldn't sink any deeper, another message came through. This time, it wasn't a threat. It was an offer. A private link. Password protected. And a short note, "Final choice. Full archive in exchange for public silence. You get the truth. You walk away. No exposure. No consequences." It was everything she'd been chasing: proof, documentation, digital logs, internal emails, everything. But the condition was clear. If she accessed it, she had to agree, in writing, to never reveal it. The system was giving her a deal. The truth, but only for her. It was the ultimate compromise, knowledge without power. The weight of it crushed her. She thought about all the people who had been manipulated, silenced, surveilled. Sarah, vanished without a trace. The journalist she had once admired, now exposed as a puppet. The messages, the digital breadcrumbs, even the photo of her sleeping, they had all led to this moment. And now she had a choice to make. Accept the truth and live with the burden of secrecy, or reject it and risk everything for a chance to blow it all wide open. But what if blowing it open meant people getting hurt, innocents caught in the fallout? What if her story wasn't about exposing corruption anymore but about deciding what price she was willing to pay for the truth? Emma stared at the screen, the cursor blinking inside the password field like a ticking clock. Outside, the streets were quiet. Too quiet. Every sound felt amplified, every shadow too long. She felt watched, not just from outside, but from within the very systems she used daily. Every device, every camera, every login, none of it felt safe anymore. She wasn't paranoid. She was awake. And the cost of that awareness was unbearable. She thought about her younger self, the one who just wanted to leave an honest review, who believed in the power of transparency, of accountability. That girl felt so far away now. In her place stood someone staring down a system that didn't just hide the truth, it curated it, sculpted it, used it like a weapon. She could end the nightmare, accept the archive, and disappear quietly. Or she could take the next step, alone, without guarantees, knowing she'd lose even more along the way. As her fingers hovered over the keyboard, her phone buzzed again. A new video. No title. No sender. She clicked it, and what she saw made her heart stop cold. It was live footage, her front door. A man standing outside, not moving, face obscured by a hood. And just before the clip ended, he looked up directly at the camera. Emma had no idea how the feed was captured or who was behind it, but the message was unmistakable. The choice was hers, but the time to make it was running out. The moment Emma saw the hooded man outside her apartment door, everything inside her screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. Every route she could take, every option she might choose, felt like it had already been anticipated, mapped out in advance by a system that didn't just react but calculated. She stared at the video feed, her breath caught between panic and paralysis. It wasn't just a threat anymore. It was an ultimatum. There was no more time to weigh consequences, no more room for hesitation. The conspiracy she had unearthed or stumbled into was no longer a shadowy theory hiding behind tech jargon and corporate doublespeak. It was here. It was watching. And it was moving. Emma backed away from her screen, trying to silence the rising terror, trying to think. She grabbed her phone, intent on calling Alex again, but it rang before she could hit dial. The screen showed his name. Her heart surged with a mix of hope and dread as she answered, but the voice on the other end was not his. It was distorted, synthetic, clipped, clearly routed through some kind of voice masking software. Alex made his choice, the voice said calmly. He should have kept his mouth shut. This is what happens when people don't respect boundaries. The call ended abruptly, and the line went dead. Emma stood still, barely breathing, her heart thudding loud enough to drown out her thoughts. She didn't know what had happened to Alex, but deep down she knew he was gone. Maybe not dead, but silenced, removed from the board. Another casualty in a game she was still trying to understand. She needed to get out, now. She stuffed the hard drive Alex had given her into a bag, grabbed only what she could carry, and slipped out the back of the building. Every corner, every parked car, every passing pedestrian felt like a threat. She didn't dare go to her parents' place, didn't dare contact old friends. They'd all be monitored. There was only one person left she could try, and even that was a risk she wasn't sure she could afford. She headed across town to meet with a contact she hadn't spoken to in years, someone she had once interviewed for a college journalism project, someone who now ran a small underground network of whistleblowers and privacy watchdogs. His name was Wes, and if anyone could help her navigate the storm she was caught in, it was him. When she arrived at the safe house, a run-down brick building tucked between a boarded-up laundromat and an abandoned auto repair shop, he was already waiting. He didn't say anything when he saw her, just motioned for her to come inside and lock the door behind her. The moment she showed him the hard drive, his expression changed. He recognized the encryption, the formatting. It wasn't just proprietary, it was military-grade. This wasn't just a rogue corporation running unchecked. The infrastructure, the reach, the software, all of it pointed to something far more massive. Emma, Wes said carefully, this isn't just about Sentinel. This is a surveillance prototype funded through black budgets and filtered through dozens of shell companies. They're testing it under the guise of consumer tech, but the endgame isn't feedback manipulation, it's mass influence control. Behavior steering. They're training algorithms to rewrite public sentiment in real time, not just for brands, but for governments. Emma felt her knees weaken. It was worse than she'd feared. Her review had been the trigger because she was part of a test group, an algorithmic case study. Everything that followed, the CEO's reply, the manufactured video, even the people she thought she could trust, was part of an orchestrated reaction designed to measure how far someone would go when they believed they were uncovering the truth on their own. She wasn't investigating the system. She was the experiment. Then came the final blow. Wes, with a look she'd never seen before, part guilt, part apology, pulled out a file and slid it across the table. Emma opened it slowly, already fearing what she'd find. Inside were logs, timestamps, chat transcripts. Her name. Noah's name. Alex's name. Wes's name. All listed under a project folder labeled Athena_Observer_Cohort_B. And at the bottom of the document, signed access records from a high-clearance system. The signature was Noah's. It wasn't just that he had been involved. He had been one of the lead operatives assigned to her case. He had monitored her behavior, recorded her emotional responses, logged every digital reaction she had. His call earlier, the warning cloaked as care, wasn't about protecting her, it was about steering her away from exposure. He had been managing her like a variable in a test, keeping her within parameters until she pushed too far. And now, he had vanished, but not because he was running from the system. He was running from her. The betrayal cut deeper than anything else. She thought she had been fighting an algorithm, a corporation, an invisible hand. But the true enemy had always been closer. Watching. Guiding. Calculating. Her own brother. The air in the room grew thick as she processed the weight of it. This wasn't just about whistleblowing or truth-telling anymore. This was about survival. If she exposed the program, there was no telling how far the fallout would go. Lives, reputations, governments, it would all implode. And she would be at the center of it. Wes looked at her carefully. You can still walk away, he said. Or you can burn it all down. But if you choose the second path, there's no coming back. You'll be hunted. Not just by the company, but by the people you think you're saving. Emma didn't answer right away. She stared at the file, her mind racing, heart pounding, everything around her narrowing to a single point of clarity. The conspiracy wasn't just bigger than she thought, it was everywhere. And now that she saw it for what it was, she realized the most dangerous thing she could do wasn't running or exposing it. It was choosing what kind of story the world would hear. And in that moment, Emma finally understood what they had truly underestimated, not her influence, not her digital footprint, not even her courage. They had underestimated her resolve. Emma hadn't spoken for nearly an hour. She sat in silence as Wes worked through layers of encrypted files, his fingers flying across the keyboard with precision born of desperation. Outside, the wind howled through broken alleyways like a warning, and inside the safe house, the air felt charged, too still, too heavy, like the moment before lightning strikes. Emma's mind reeled with the knowledge she'd been living inside a meticulously controlled simulation. Each choice she thought was her own, orchestrated by a system built not to correct her but to study her. Every connection, every click, every word she posted online was logged, analyzed, and fed back into an AI model that had grown so advanced, it could shape her behavior without her even realizing it. Sentinel wasn't a tool. It was a mirror, twisted, predictive, self-correcting. It didn't just watch you. It made you. Then Wes froze. "Emma," he said, voice taut, "I found the source protocol. The original user trigger for Sentinel's escalation. It's not what we thought." He turned the screen toward her. The file wasn't titled with her name, it was titled Project Genesis, Profile_1. Emma leaned in, heart hammering. The photo embedded in the file was of her. Yes, but it was dated 5 years earlier. Long before the review. Long before she even knew the company existed. She scrolled through the file, stunned. They had been tracking her since her sophomore year of college, back when she had joined a social justice group focused on data transparency. They hadn't responded to her review. They had anticipated it. She wasn't a random user flagged for escalation, she was the prototype. The entire Sentinel program had been built around her. A live test subject. A human feedback loop. Her breath caught in her throat as another revelation unfurled. The first CEO she had interacted with, the one who had replied to her review, the one she believed had started this chain reaction, he wasn't real. Not entirely. The messages, the video call, even the apology had been partially AI-generated, crafted by an avatar controlled by the program itself. The real leadership behind the project had never revealed themselves. The CEO had always been a shell, a perfect mask. And then Wes found something buried deeper in the server, a hidden communication thread between two senior program directors. The names on the thread stopped her cold. One was Noah, and the other was Wes. Before she could speak, she saw it in his face. That flicker of regret, of quiet resignation. The kind that comes from knowing the final move has already been played. She stood, stepping back instinctively. "You were part of it," she said, her voice shaking. Wes didn't deny it. "I was supposed to bring you in if you got too close," he said, his tone hollow. "But I didn't know what they had really done to you. I thought it was a containment project, not a behavioral blueprint. I didn't know you were the original subject." He looked up at her then, eyes pleading. "I was trying to fix it from the inside. That's why I gave you the drive. But now they know. They're coming." Emma backed toward the door, her hand trembling around the strap of her bag. She couldn't believe she had trusted him, confided in him. But it made sense now why he had access to everything, why he knew the encryption so well, why he always seemed one step ahead of the dangers, yet always just behind when she needed him most. He had been controlling the pace, keeping her busy, distracted, moving just fast enough to feel like she was escaping when really, she was still inside the maze. Suddenly, all the lights in the building cut out. The monitors went black. A low hum started vibrating through the walls, subtle at first, then building into a dense, humming drone. Wes swore under his breath and grabbed a small metal device from his desk. "They've triggered the failsafe. They're wiping everything, resetting the digital footprint. If you leave now, you'll have nothing, no proof, no records. They'll ghost the files, and the world will go back to sleep." Emma looked at him, really looked at him. "Then why warn me now?" Wes hesitated. "Because you were never supposed to get this far. And because I think maybe, you're the only one who can end it the right way." He handed her a key. A real one. Not digital. Backup server. Physical. Offline. Only one left. It's in the original testing facility, outside Phoenix. If you can get there before they wipe the local logs, you might be able to extract the core dataset. It has everything. Identities. Source code. Development chain. Once that's public, they can't hide it anymore. Emma took the key and bolted. The safe house had already begun shutting down behind her, every step echoing like it was being erased in real time. She hit the street running, adrenaline tearing through her veins. She barely made it to the station in time to catch a night train headed west. She didn't know what she'd find at the facility, if it was even real. But this was it. The final shot. 2 days later, Emma stood alone in a cold underground server room, rows of machines blinking silently in the dark. She had used the key to bypass the physical lock, navigated the dead facility like she had lived there once. And in a way, she had. Her digital life had been born here. Her algorithmic identity. Her false reality. She found the server labeled Athena_Core_0 and connected the drive Wes had given her. The screen flickered to life, revealing layers of truth, coded manipulation scripts, experimental behavior clusters, even social media bot interactions linked directly to her name. It was all here. She hit the upload command, routing the files through a secure leak server, one known to bypass suppression algorithms. As the progress bar climbed, Emma allowed herself to breathe. But then, just as the bar hit 99%, a message flashed across the screen. Upload complete. Broadcast scheduled. Welcome back, Subject 1. Emma blinked. That wasn't a completion message. It was a trigger. The room fell into darkness so complete it felt like the air itself had vanished. Emma stood frozen, the hum of the server racks now eerily silent, as if even the machines were holding their breath. The voice that had echoed through the chamber, cool, synthetic, unmistakably calm, still lingered in her ears, whispering a truth she hadn't wanted to consider. This hadn't been a rescue mission. It had been the final experiment. All along, she believed she was navigating her way toward the truth, breaking through a conspiracy carefully woven by faceless executives and rogue AI systems. But in the end, what she hadn't seen was the simplest truth of all: she had never been in control. Not when she posted the review. Not when she met with Wes. Not even when she found the server. Every step had been monitored, measured, modeled. Her behavior wasn't just predicted, it had been used to shape the final product. The leak, the escape, the hero's journey, it was all data. And now that it had reached its conclusion, she was right back where she started, being watched. And yet, as the systems around her rebooted, flickers of red and blue dancing across rows of metal towers, something inside her refused to break. Maybe the broadcast had been a trigger. Maybe it had been the final stage in a complex behavioral loop. But it was out there now. The full dataset. The source code. The manipulation algorithms. Everything had been uploaded unchecked, unfiltered. For the first time, the world wasn't seeing a corporate press release or a PR apology. They were seeing the truth. Thousands of users had already begun resharing the leak, tagging it with #digitalcontrol, #sentineltruth, and #theywatchyou hashtags now trending across every major platform. The algorithm couldn't suppress them all, not this time. Emma made her way out of the facility as daylight began to bleed through the cracks in the roof, her mind numb but strangely calm. She knew there was no going back. The world would wake up to what she'd uncovered, but it wouldn't be the victory she once imagined. There would be chaos, disbelief, denial. People would claim it was deepfake propaganda, others would use it to feed conspiracy theories, and governments would scramble to spin their own narratives. But buried in all of that noise would be something that could never again be controlled: choice. Awareness. The ability for people to ask the right questions, even if they didn't like the answers. She had given them that, at least. Weeks later, Emma sat quietly in a coffee shop tucked into the hills of Northern California, the kind of place no GPS could easily find. Her hair was shorter now, dyed darker, and her name wasn't Emma anymore, at least, not officially. She didn't use a phone. Her laptop had no apps, no accounts. And yet, every now and then, she'd open an anonymous feed and scroll through the ripple effects of what she had done. Protests outside tech headquarters. Congressional hearings. Lawsuits filed by users claiming psychological manipulation. A rising demand for algorithmic transparency. It wasn't revolution, not yet, but it was movement. The kind that couldn't be reversed. What she didn't expect, however, was the message. It came through a secure channel used only by underground networks, addressed not to her name but to her codename, Subject 1. It was brief, Just a single sentence. There are more of you. Attached was a video, grainy footage of a young woman staring into a camera, visibly shaken. She was describing a different company, a different product, but the pattern was unmistakably familiar. Behavior shaping. Memory manipulation. Algorithmic containment. It wasn't just Sentinel. It wasn't just her. The experiment was bigger, older, deeper than even Emma had imagined. She closed the laptop slowly, the weight of the moment settling into her chest like gravity. There were others. More systems. More test subjects. The digital world wasn't broken. It was being rewritten in secret, line by line, code by code, mind by mind. And now that the story had started to leak, it would only get harder to stop. As Emma stepped out into the fading sunlight, she knew this wasn't the end of her story. It was only the end of the beginning. Somewhere out there, another version of herself was waking up. Another user questioning the system. Another voice, ready to be silenced or to fight back. And as for those still watching, those who believed they had won because they had written the rules, Emma had one last message for them, one final move they never calculated. She had learned how to play the game. And now, she wasn't the subject of the experiment anymore. She was the variable they couldn't predict.